26th October 1842. Battle of Santa Cruz, South Pacific, 10:15 hours. USS Smith, a Mahan-class destroyer. Displacement 1,500 tons. Operates as anti-aircraft screen for carrier task force. Japanese aircraft attack. Dozens of dive bombers and torpedo planes strike American carriers Enterprise and Hornet. Smith maneuvers at 35 knots, firing all anti-aircraft weapons. Her crew has been at battle stations for 3 hours. At 10:18 hours, a Japanese Nakajima B-5N torpedo bomber, already damaged by anti-aircraft fire, loses control. The aircraft cannot maneuver. It is diving toward the ocean, but it is also diving toward USS Smith. The pilot, dead or unconscious, does not adjust course. The bomber strikes Smith's forecastle at approximately 300 kilometers per hour. The impact is catastrophic. The bomber weighs approximately 4,000 kilograms. It carries an 800-kilogram torpedo and approximately 2,000 liters of aviation fuel. The aircraft disintegrates on contact. The torpedo does not explode, saved by safety mechanisms, but the fuel ignites instantly. 2,000 liters of aviation gasoline explodes across Smith's forward deck. The forecastle becomes inferno. The forward gun mount is engulfed. Crew in the forward sections are killed instantly or trapped by flames. The fire spreads. Aviation fuel flows through deck seams into compartments below. The paint on the bulkheads is oil-based. It ignites. The forward magazines contain ammunition for the 5-inch guns. If the fire reaches the magazines, Smith will explode. The crew has minutes to control the fire or abandon ship. The ship is still in combat. Japanese aircraft are still attacking. Enemy ships are within gun range. Smith cannot stop fighting to fight the fire. Lieutenant Commander Hunter Wood, commanding, makes immediate decisions. First, maintain course and speed. Stopping makes the ship a target. Second, continue anti-aircraft fire with aft weapons. The battle continues. Smith will fight. Third, use the ocean to extinguish the fire. Wood orders Smith to steam into the wake of battleship USS South Dakota. Ahead in formation, South Dakota displaces 38,000 tons. Her wake at high speed creates massive water disturbance. Spray rises 15 meters. Wood aims Smith's burning bow directly into that spray. At 10:20 hours, Smith enters South Dakota's wake. The spray hits Smith's forecastle like fire hose. Tons of seawater per second strike the burning deck. The flames decrease. The spray continues. Smith stays in the wake for approximately 5 minutes. The water suppresses the fire. The aviation fuel is washed overboard. The flames are extinguished. The forecastle is scorched black, twisted metal, but no longer burning. Damage control teams move forward. They secure the area. They treat wounded. They prepare to resume operations. At 10:28 hours, Smith exits South Dakota's wake. Her forward sections are destroyed. 28 crew are dead. 23 are wounded. The forward gun mount is inoperable, but the ship is intact. Her engines function. Her steering responds. Her aft weapons fire. Smith returns to anti-aircraft screen. She continues fighting. The burning destroyer that steamed through a battleship's wake to extinguish herself rejoins the battle. The flaming charge that refused to stop. This is USS Smith at Santa Cruz, the destroyer that was set on fire by a crashing aircraft and used the ocean itself as firefighting equipment. The ship that fought while burning. The captain who steered into a battleship's wake to save his vessel. The crew that contained catastrophe and resumed combat within 10 minutes. The destroyer that became a fireball and charged anyway. To understand Smith's actions at Santa Cruz, you need to understand both the battle itself and destroyer operations in carrier task forces. The Battle of Santa Cruz was the fourth carrier engagement of the Pacific War, after Coral Sea, Midway, and Eastern Solomons. Both sides understood carrier air power was decisive. The Japanese sought to destroy American carriers. The Americans sought to defend their carriers while sinking Japanese carriers. The battles were fought by aircraft. The surface ships maneuvered, launched aircraft, and defended themselves. Destroyers like Smith had specific role: anti-aircraft defense. Carriers were vulnerable to air attack. Their defense required coordinated fire from screening ships. Destroyers positioned around carriers provided overlapping fields of fire. When enemy aircraft attacked, every ship fired. The defensive fire created barrage the attackers had to penetrate. The more ships firing, the more effective the defense, but this role was dangerous. Destroyers were close to carriers. The primary targets: Enemy aircraft often flew over or through destroyer positions. Crippled aircraft crashed near or into screening ships. The destroyers absorbed attacks meant for carriers. This was intentional. Better to lose a destroyer than a carrier. The strategic value was different. The sacrifice was expected. USS Smith was commissioned in 1936. She was Mahan-class destroyer. Displacement 1,500 tons. Length 104 meters. Armament included 5 5-inch guns, anti-aircraft weapons, and torpedo tubes. She had fought at Coral Sea and Eastern Solomons. Her crew was experienced. They understood their role. Protect the carriers. Accept the risks. Fight until ordered otherwise. On 26 October 1942, Smith was screening carrier USS Hornet. The task force operated east of the Santa Cruz Islands, approximately 600 kilometers from Guadalcanal. The Japanese had located the American carriers and launched strikes. Approximately 100 Japanese aircraft attacked. The Americans had launched their own strikes against Japanese carriers. Both sides were fighting simultaneously. The battle developed chaotically. Aircraft from both sides filled the air. Anti-aircraft fire from both fleets created constant explosions. Ships maneuvered violently. Torpedoes ran through formations. Bombs fell continuously. The battle lasted approximately 4 hours. Ships on both sides were hit. Hornet was crippled by multiple bombs and torpedoes. Enterprise was damaged but operational. 2 Japanese carriers were damaged. Multiple ships on both sides were destroyed or damaged. Smith's position was in the screen approximately 2,000 meters from Hornet. When the Japanese strike arrived at approximately 1000 hours, Smith commenced firing. Her 5-inch guns engaged bombers at long range. Her anti-aircraft weapons fired at closer threats. The crew worked efficiently, loading, firing, tracking targets, the routine they had drilled hundreds of times. But the targets were real. The explosions were real. The danger was real. At 10:18 hours, the damaged torpedo bomber approached. The aircraft had been hit by anti-aircraft fire from multiple ships. It was losing altitude. Smoke trailed from the engine. The pilot was likely dead or dying. The aircraft was out of control. It descended toward Smith. The crew saw it coming. They fired at it. Additional hits were scored, but the momentum carried the bomber forward. It struck Smith's forecastle. The impact occurred approximately 15 meters aft of the bow. The bomber hit at shallow angle, sliding across the deck before disintegrating. The fuselage broke apart. The engine tore through the forward gun mount. The wings sheared off. Fuel tanks ruptured. 2,000 liters of aviation gasoline sprayed across the deck and ignited. The torpedo separated and fell into the ocean without exploding. The aircrew, 2 or 3 men, were killed on impact. The explosion was massive. Flames engulfed the forecastle. The forward gun crew, approximately 15 men, were in the direct path. Most died instantly. A few were thrown clear by the blast. They had severe burns. The forward damage control station was destroyed. Equipment stored on the forecastle was incinerated. The deck plating was heated red. Paint ignited on bulkheads. The fire spread aft toward the bridge. Lieutenant Commander Wood was on the bridge. He saw the impact. He felt the explosion. He saw flames covering his ship's forward section. His immediate assessment was that Smith was critically damaged and might be lost. The fire was too large. The damage was too severe. Standard procedure was to attempt firefighting. If that failed, abandon ship. But abandoning ship during battle meant abandoning the task force. Smith would be unable to continue anti-aircraft defense. The carriers would be more vulnerable. Wood decided to fight the fire while remaining operational. He would not stop to fight the fire. He would not withdraw from position. He would use unconventional method to suppress flames while maintaining combat capability. He ordered Smith to increase speed and steer toward South Dakota, approximately 1,000 meters ahead. South Dakota was King George V class battleship. On loan from Britain, displacement 38,000 tons. At 30 knots, her wake created massive disturbance. Water thrown from bow wave created continuous spray. Ships passing through the wake were drenched. Wood's plan was to use this spray as firefighting water. Steam directly into the wake. Let the ocean extinguish the fire. Continue operations immediately after. The plan was risky. Steering a damaged destroyer at high speed into a battleship's wake could cause additional damage. The wake could flood compartments through the damaged forecastle. The ship could lose control. Collision was possible if steering failed, but the alternative was watching the fire spread until magazines exploded or abandoning a ship that was still operational. At 10:20 hours, Smith entered South Dakota's wake. The effect was immediate. Tons of water per second struck Smith's bow. The spray rose higher than the bridge. Water cascaded over the forecastle. The flames were suppressed. The spray continued for approximately 5 minutes as Smith maintained position in the wake. The water washed burning fuel overboard. It cooled heated metal. It extinguished secondary fires in compartments below. The crew on the bridge was drenched. Visibility was minimal. Wood could barely see the battleship ahead, but he maintained position by following her wake pattern. After approximately 5 minutes, Wood judged the fire sufficiently suppressed. He ordered Smith to exit the wake and resume screening position. When Smith emerged, her forecastle was scorched, twisted, and torn. The forward gun mount was destroyed. Debris littered the deck, but the fire was out. The ship was intact. Wood ordered damage control teams forward. They secured damaged areas. They treated wounded. They assessed structural damage. The ship was combat capable despite the damage. At 10:28 hours, 10 minutes after the aircraft crashed, Smith resumed anti-aircraft fire with aft weapons. She maintained position in the screen. She continued operations. The other ships in the task force observed this with astonishment. A destroyer had been set on fire by aircraft impact, driven through a battleship's wake to extinguish the fire, and returned to combat within 10 minutes. The determination was remarkable. The battle continued through the afternoon. Smith remained in position, firing at attacking aircraft. Additional Japanese strikes were beaten off. Hornet was sinking, damaged beyond repair. Enterprise withdrew, still operational but damaged. The American task force withdrew east. The battle was tactical draw but strategic Japanese victory. The Americans lost a carrier. The Japanese lost none, but Japanese aircraft losses were severe. The sacrifice of ships like Smith had inflicted casualties the Japanese could not easily replace. Smith withdrew with the task force. Her casualties were 28 dead, 23 wounded. Most dead were from the forward gun crew, killed instantly by the impact and explosion. The wounded were primarily burn victims. The medical staff treated them with limited resources. The wounded were transferred to other ships with better medical facilities when opportunity arose. The damage to Smith was extensive. The forecastle was destroyed. The forward gun mount was inoperable. The deck plating was buckled. Compartments below the impact point were flooded and fire damaged. But the engineering spaces were intact. The propulsion was functional. The ship could steam at full speed. She could fight with remaining weapons. She was damaged but operational. Smith proceeded to rear area bases for repairs. The work took approximately 2 months. The forecastle was rebuilt. The forward gun mount was replaced. Fire-damaged compartments were repaired. New crew replaced the dead. By January 1943, Smith was operational again. She returned to combat and served through the end of the war. She participated in multiple operations. She survived the war and was decommissioned in 1946. Lieutenant Commander Wood received the Navy Cross for his actions at Santa Cruz. The citation noted his quick thinking, unconventional tactics, and determination to keep his ship fighting despite severe damage. The decision to steam into South Dakota's wake was specifically mentioned as innovative damage control. Wood's leadership was credited with saving the ship and maintaining her combat effectiveness. The crew who survived the crash became known for their story. The destroyer that steamed through a battleship's wake to put out a fire. The tale was told throughout the Navy. Other commanders studied Wood's tactics. Using ship's wake for firefighting became recognized technique, not common, because circumstances requiring it were rare, but documented as viable option when conventional methods were unavailable. The historical assessment recognizes Smith's actions as exemplary damage control and leadership. Wood's decision to use South Dakota's wake was innovative. The crew's execution was professional. The ships returned to combat within 10 minutes, demonstrated discipline and training. The entire sequence showed what well-commanded, well-trained crews could accomplish under extreme circumstances. But the assessment also notes the costs. 28 men died. 23 were wounded. The forward gun mount was destroyed. The ship was out of action for 2 months. The Kamikaze, though unintentional, had inflicted significant damage. Smith survived and returned to fight, but she paid heavily for that survival. The tactical lessons were incorporated into fleet doctrine. Ships should maintain maximum speed and maneuverability during air attacks to reduce probability of being hit by crashing aircraft. Damage control should be aggressive and innovative. Commanders should not assume ships are lost until they are actually sinking. Determination and quick thinking can save damaged ships. The comparison to other damaged ships at Santa Cruz is instructive. Hornet was damaged so severely she had to be abandoned. Destroyers attempted TOWs, but Japanese attacks prevented them. Hornet was scuttled. Enterprise was damaged but withdrew successfully. Smith was damaged but remained operational and continued fighting. The difference was partly luck, partly design, partly leadership. Wood's decision to use South Dakota's wake was crucial. Without that, the fire might have spread to magazines. Smith might have exploded. Instead, she survived. The story of Smith at Santa Cruz became part of Navy tradition. The burning destroyer that charged through spray to save herself. The flaming ship that refused to quit. The crew that fought fires while fighting the enemy. The captain who used the ocean as weapon against fire. The destroyer that demonstrated what determination achieves. For the families of the 28 dead, the story was bittersweet. Their loved ones died heroically. They died fighting. The ship survived partly because they had died. Their sacrifice mattered, but they were still dead. The ship came home. The men did not. The calculus of war is brutal. Ships can be repaired. Men cannot be replaced. This is the story of USS Smith at the Battle of Santa Cruz. The destroyer hit by crashing torpedo bomber. The ship set on fire by 2,000 liters of aviation fuel. The vessel that steamed through a battleship's wake to extinguish the flames. The warship that returned to combat 10 minutes after being turned into fireball. The destroyer that demonstrated what training, leadership, and determination accomplish. 28 men died. The ship survived. The fire was extinguished by the ocean itself. The battle continued. Smith fought on. The flaming charge that refused to stop. The burning destroyer that used the sea to save herself and kept fighting. That is USS Smith. That is Santa Cruz. That is what happens when innovation meets necessity and leadership rises to crisis. The destroyer became fireball. The captain steered into spray. The ocean extinguished the flames. The ship resumed fighting. That is enough to remember. USS Smith. The destroyer that charged through fire and spray and refused to quit. The ship that fought while burning. The crew that contained catastrophe within minutes. The captain who used a battleship's wake to save his vessel. The flaming charge that demonstrates determination overcomes damage when leadership provides method. The aircraft crashed. The fuel ignited. The ship burned. The captain steered into spray. The ocean extinguished the flames. The ship resumed fighting. 10 minutes from impact to resuming operations. 28 dead. 1 ship saved. 1 battle continued. That is USS Smith at Santa Cruz, the destroyer that was a fireball and charged anyway. The ship saved by the ocean she sailed. The crew that fought fires and enemies simultaneously. The command decisions that turned potential loss into continued operations. The flaming charge. The unconventional tactic. The spray that extinguished the fire. The ship that refused to quit. That is USS Smith. That is her story at Santa Cruz. That is enough to remember. The destroyer that burned and fought and survived because her captain steered into a battleship's wake and let the ocean save his ship.